I'm Rachel Morgan, 34 years old, and 3 weeks ago I spent $1,200 and left a critical project behind because my dad said my mom was in the hospital when I walked through their front door in Phoenix. The first thing I saw was a stack of cruise brochures and my sister folding swimsuits. They weren't worried or grieving. They were packing for a 10-day Bahamas vacation, and I was there to babysit 3 kids. They lied to get me home. And as I stood there with my suitcase still in hand, I realized they never once considered what they'd taken from me. Before I go any further, let me know where you're listening from in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button if your family has ever used guilt to get their way. I was born and raised in Phoenix, the older of 2 girls. Our home wasn't fancy, but it was steady 4 bedrooms, tile floors that echoed when you walked barefoot, and a front yard my dad mowed like it was a golf course. He worked as an insurance adjuster, Mom taught 2nd grade, and from the outside we looked like a family that had it together. But inside that house, there were 2 very different sets of expectations. My sister Lindsay was the baby, the golden one. If she forgot a chore or broke something, she was just tired or meant well. If I slipped up, I'd hear about it for a week. By the time I was 10, I was already helping Lindsay with homework and making sure she brushed her teeth before bed. In high school, when she nearly failed pre-algebra, I was pulled from my own advanced math study group to tutor her every evening. The first car Lindsay drove was the same one she dented in Dad's work parking lot. I had to give up my senior trip fund to help cover the repairs. It didn't stop when we got older. I went to college on scholarship and worked 2 part-time jobs to keep afloat. Lindsay dropped out of community college before her 2nd semester and moved back in without ever paying rent. When she had her first baby at 22 and 2 more by 26, my parents treated it like she'd earned a badge of honor. I sent gift cards and called on birthdays. Every time I flew home, it felt like I was stepping into a role I hadn't auditioned for: caretaker, problem solver, fixer of everything. 6 years ago, I moved to New York to breathe. I found work at an event planning firm that handled high-end corporate launches and conferences. It was fast-paced, competitive, and exactly what I needed. I climbed the ranks, and last year I was promoted to senior manager. My job wasn't just a job, it was my independence, my dignity, my escape. We kept things civil. I called home on Sundays. I sent birthday gifts. I never let myself get pulled back into the day-to-day emergencies my family ran on. I loved my niece and nephews, Tyler's boundless energy, Emma's stubborn little grin, and baby Grant with his sticky fingers and permanent Kool-Aid mustache. But I kept my distance, because every time I let myself get too close, I ended up holding the bag. That Tuesday night I was sitting at my desk finalizing vendor agreements for a $2 million product launch when my dad called. His voice shook. "Rachel," he said, "your mom's sick. Real sick. Pneumonia. She's asking for you." My heart sank. Mom had gone through chemo 5 years back, and her immune system never fully bounced back. I dropped everything, told my boss I'd work remotely where I could, booked the next flight west, even though it meant losing money and risking the most important event of my career. I didn't sleep more than an hour on that flight. I kept thinking about hospital beds and beeping monitors and whether I'd made it in time. When I pulled up to the house the next morning, nothing felt right. The front yard looked too neat. The lights were on, and inside there was no quiet dread, just my sister laughing over a pile of beach towels and my mom checking cruise tickets. I stood there in the doorway, jet-lagged and numb, while they told me Mom had a cold, not pneumonia, that they needed someone they could trust, that they were leaving in the morning, that they knew I wouldn't come if I knew the truth. I didn't answer right away. I just looked past them at the 3 kids watching cartoons in the next room. Their little faces lit up when they saw me. And right then, I knew this wasn't going to be another visit. It was going to be something else entirely. I stood there in that entryway, the suitcase still by my feet, listening to my mother talk about cruise departure times like nothing was out of the ordinary. My sister, Lindsay, was holding up a sun hat in one hand and sunscreen in the other, asking if Mom thought SPF 30 would be enough. Dad gave me a sheepish look from across the kitchen, like maybe he'd dropped his car keys instead of faking a family emergency. "You're not sick," I said, but it came out flat, like the air had left my lungs. "I had a little cold last week," Mom said, waving her hand as if to brush it away. "But I'm fine now." I looked at Dad. "You said it was pneumonia. You said the doctor was worried, that she was asking for me." Dad folded the cruise itinerary in half and cleared his throat. "Well, we knew you wouldn't come if we told you the truth." "The truth." My voice caught in my throat. "What truth?" Lindsay stepped forward, her voice too cheerful for the moment. "We're going on a cruise, 10 days in the Bahamas. It's been on the books for a while now." She looked me straight in the eye, "And we really need someone to stay with the kids." Behind her, I caught a glimpse of them. Tyler in his mismatched socks, Emma holding a crayon in one hand and a stuffed giraffe in the other, and little Grant slumped on the floor, busy unraveling a roll of toilet paper like it was a game. My stomach turned. "So you lied. You lied about Mom being sick so I'd fly across the country and watch your kids." "Well," Dad said with a shrug, "when you say it like that." "That's exactly what happened." Lindsay rolled her eyes. "Come on, Rachel. You were coming home for Christmas anyway. This is just a little earlier. I was coming home for 3 days. In December, not 10 days in the middle of October while I'm running the biggest event of my career." Mom's voice softened, but it didn't help. "Sweetheart family comes first. Lindsay's had a rough year with the kids. We all needed this break." I could still hear the TV from the other room. Cartoons, snack wrappers, the light thump of a ball bouncing off a wall. I paid over $1,000 for a last-minute flight. I thought something was wrong. I thought I was coming to say goodbye. From the hallway, Tyler peeked around the corner. Emma followed shyly, tugging at her dress. Grant just stood there chewing on the end of a shoelace. "They're excited to see you," Lindsay said, motioning toward them. "You don't have kids, Rachel. You wouldn't understand how much we need a break sometimes." I didn't answer. I was looking at the kids. They hadn't done anything wrong. They just knew their aunt had come to visit. Dad tried to smooth things over. "We needed someone we trust. You're their aunt." I looked back at him. "Does trust include lying to me, manipulating me? You made me think Mom was in a hospital bed." "That's enough," Rachel, Mom said. Her voice had that tone, the one that used to shut down arguments before they started. "We've made arrangements. The cruise is paid for. We leave tomorrow morning. The kids need you." She said it like there wasn't a choice. "You've already decided," I said quietly. Lindsay stepped closer. "It's only 10 days. Tyler's ADHD is under control now. Emma has danced twice a week. Grant's still a handful, but he naps in the afternoon. The last time I visited Tyler took apart my curling iron with a fork. Emma cried for an hour because her cookie broke. And Grant, he drew on every wall in the guest room. They've matured, she said, though her eyes said otherwise. Mom nodded as if that settled it. We'll go over their routines tonight. I realized then they never doubted I'd say yes. Not once. They didn't just expect me to help. They built an entire vacation around the assumption that I would. That night after the kids were in bed, the 3 of them sat me down for what Lindsay called the handover briefing. There was no medical file, no emergency contact list, just a scrap of paper with the school address, some scribbled reminders, and the words pull-ups in Grant's bottom drawer. "What about their pediatrician?" I asked. "They're fine," Lindsay said. "Don't overthink it. And money for food activities." She hesitated. "We used most of it booking the trip. But you've got your job in New York. You're good for it." I didn't say anything, just folded the paper and put it in my bag. The next morning was a blur. Dad loaded the car, Mom kissed the kids, Lindsay checked her bag 3 times for sunglasses. They barely said goodbye before pulling out of the driveway. And then it was just me. 3 kids, 10 days. Before lunch, Grant threw a tantrum when he realized his mother wasn't coming back. Emma couldn't find her sparkly barrettes. Tyler refused the cereal I made and said he wanted the kind in the blue box. I didn't even know what the blue box was. We were late to school drop-off because no one told me which door to use. I had to circle the carpool line twice, trying to understand the layout, while other parents honked behind me. By the time I got back to the house, I was already behind on work. I opened my laptop, joined a video call, and tried to sound like I wasn't unraveling. "We need those vendor contracts finalized by tomorrow," my assistant Julian said. "And the client wants to change the seating map." "Got it," I said, though I didn't. That afternoon I went to the wrong entrance for pickup. Tyler had lost his backpack. Emma was crying about a drawing someone laughed at. Grant was wearing one pant leg and no shoes. Dinner that night was cold spaghetti. The fridge was nearly empty. I had to take all 3 kids to the store just to get through breakfast the next day. By bedtime, I was drained. I finally got them to sleep, sat on the couch, and checked my phone. A photo from Lindsay popped up. She was holding a cocktail. Mom and Dad were smiling behind her. The caption said, "Bon voyage," finally relaxing. I stared at it for a long time. The glow from the screen lit up the dark living room. The quiet was a little too loud, and that was only day 1. The second morning started a little smoother. Tyler found his shoes without a meltdown, and Emma let me braid her hair without protest. Grant still tried to eat toothpaste, but I managed to stop him before it got too far. We got out the door almost on time. Then Tyler handed me his pill bottle. "I'm supposed to take this with breakfast." I looked inside. 1 pill. "Mom usually gets more when it runs out," he said, like it was just part of the routine. I called the pharmacy. They couldn't refill the prescription without the doctor's authorization. Amanda hadn't left any contact info. We'd need the physician's office name, the pharmacist told me, or even a card, anything. I thanked her and hung up, adding it to the growing list of problems I hadn't planned for. After drop-off, I cleared a spot on the dining room table and opened my laptop. I had a small window before school pickup and a lot of ground to cover. Julian had emailed a list of vendors who were starting to waver. "The AV team wants confirmation by end of day," he wrote. "And the client's asking again about the new floor plan." I started typing up responses, calling people back, trying to keep things from unraveling completely. An hour later, the phone rang again. "This is the school nurse," the voice said. "Emma says she's not feeling well and needs to go home." When I arrived, she was sitting on a bench, perfectly alert, holding her backpack. As soon as we got in the car, she said I missed Mommy. She wasn't sick. She just wanted to come home. I rescheduled a conference call, again. That afternoon, Tyler needed help with math. Emma was working on a poster for school. I turned away for just a few minutes, answering an email on my phone. Then I heard a loud crash from the living room. I ran in and saw Grant standing next to my laptop on the floor. The screen was shattered, bent at the corner. He had something metal in his hand, a small hammer I didn't even know we had. "I wanted to see the inside," he said, holding it up. I didn't yell. I just stood there for a moment, looking at what used to be my computer. All my work files, the latest revisions, my presentation for the Horizon launch. Gone. Emma started crying. Tyler tried to gather the pieces. Grant looked confused, like he didn't understand why everything had stopped. I pulled them all close and said everything was okay. I sent them outside to play while I cleaned up the mess. Then I sat back down at the table and stared at the broken screen. My phone buzzed. It was Nancy. "We need to talk," she said. Her tone was even, but I could tell. "The client's losing patience. They want someone on site. If we don't show stability this week, they're going with Henderson. Henderson was our biggest competitor. Give me 24 hours, I said. I'll figure it out." After we hung up, I stayed in that chair for a while, just listening to the quiet creak of the ceiling fan. The front doorbell rang. It was the pharmacy delivery service. They had Tyler's medication, but no refill had been authorized. They couldn't reach the doctor. No surprise. That night, dinner was leftover pasta. Emma wouldn't eat unless it was plain. Tyler spilled his juice trying to reach the napkins. Grant launched a bottle rocket he'd made with soda and tape. In the living room. After I cleaned up, I locked the bathroom door and sat on the edge of the tub. I didn't plan to cry, but it came on quick. It wasn't loud, just silent tears that felt heavier than they should have. I rinsed my face and looked in the mirror. My eyes were tired, my mouth tight. Then I reached for my phone. The first call was to Jessica. I told her everything from the fake illness to the broken laptop. "What do you need?" she asked. "A place to land in case I come back without a job." "You've got one," she said. "And it's about time, Rach." The second call was to Julian. I told him I was trying to find a way back to New York. "Let me know what you need from me," he said. "We'll hold the line." The third call was the hardest. I dialed Aunt Carol. She lived just outside Phoenix and had never put up with nonsense from anyone in the family. She and Mom didn't talk much, mostly because Carol called things like she saw them. When I finished explaining, there was a pause. They did what she said. I asked if she could watch the kids just until Amanda came back. "Bring them over," she said. "I've said for years those kids needed stability. I'll make room." We hung up, and for the first time since I landed, I felt something shift. I had a plan. The next morning, I sat the kids down in the living room. "I love you all very much," I told them, "but I have to go back to New York. You're going to stay with Great Aunt Carol for a little while." Tyler looked down at his socks. "Is it 'cause we've been too much trouble?" "No," I said. "This is about grown-up responsibilities." Emma asked if she could still talk to me. "Of course," I said. "Every day." Grant wanted to know if Aunt Carol had popsicles. "She might," I smiled. "And she's got a big backyard with a swing." They didn't cry. They just nodded. That afternoon, I started packing their things, and in the quiet of that guest room with my suitcase open beside me, I knew exactly what I had to do next. I started in the kitchen, opened a fresh notepad, wrote down everything I could remember: school hours, Lily's dance days, Tyler's medication timing. What little I knew, I wrote. I took pictures of the scribbled schedule. Lindsay had left photos of the nearly empty fridge and the crayon-streaked walls upstairs. I wasn't doing it to prove a point. I just wanted there to be no confusion later. After that, I packed a small bag for each child: their clothes, favorite stuffed animals, bedtime books. Emma had a doll she called Nora that she insisted needed her own blanket. Tyler helped me find it. Grant tucked a pair of sunglasses into his backpack and said he was going to wear them even if it rained. Once their things were ready, I sat down at the table and wrote the letter. I kept it calm. No insults, no accusations. I wrote what happened, how I was called home under false pretenses, what it had cost me personally and professionally, and why I could no longer allow that pattern to continue. I printed my receipts and attached them to the note: the flight, the groceries, the last-minute school supplies. It was all there. When I finished, I folded the letter in thirds and placed it in the middle of the dining table. The next morning, I loaded the kids into the rental car. Tyler buckled Grant's seatbelt and double-checked the backpack with his book in it. Emma kept looking out the window, asking how long it would take. I said not long. Aunt Carol's house sat at the end of a quiet street lined with citrus trees. Her driveway curved slightly to the left, and the porch had hanging wind chimes that jingled softly as we pulled up. She was already waiting when we arrived. "There they are," she said, smiling, walking down the steps toward us. "My favorite crew." She crouched to meet Grant's eyes first. "What's this fella's name?" she asked, pointing to his dinosaur toy. He told her it was Bruce. Tyler offered her a quick rundown of his science project. Emma shyly held out her doll. Inside, she showed them the rooms she'd prepared. Each child had their own bed. Night lights were already plugged in. She had a basket of coloring books on the floor and had written their names on little chalkboards above each door. In the kitchen, she'd cleared space in the fridge and set out cookie ingredients on the counter. "Thought we'd bake later," she said. I handed her the folder I'd made. "This has everything I could piece together: school drop-off times, the meds, food allergies." Lindsay didn't leave much. Carol flipped through the pages, her expression calm but firm. "Not surprised. But we'll be fine. I've got Barbara next door on backup if I need help with school pickup. You just take care of what you need to." She sat the kids down and walked them through the week. Nothing heavy, just letting them know there'd be bedtime at 8, that vegetables came before dessert, and that phones stayed in the drawer during mealtime. Emma blinked. "Mommy lets us watch TV at dinner." "Well," Carol said with a smile, "Aunt Carol doesn't. You'll get used to it." The kids nodded. Tyler asked if she had any Legos. She pointed him to a bin near the bookshelf. After they settled in, we sat in the kitchen with tea. "You're doing the right thing," she said, stirring sugar into her mug. "Sometimes people need to hit a wall before they change direction." "I'm not trying to make it a punishment," I said. "I just couldn't keep letting it happen." Carol nodded. "It's not punishment. It's clarity." Before I left, I promised the kids I'd call that evening. Tyler hugged me tight. Emma whispered that she was going to draw me something while I was gone. Grant waved with both hands. Back at my parents' house, I finished packing. I wiped down the counters, turned off all the lights, and made sure every room was as I'd found it. On the table beside the letter, I placed the broken laptop. Next to it, I left a short note, just the model, the damage, and what it would cost to replace. Then I locked the door behind me. At the airport, I used the Wi-Fi to start rebuilding what I could. I pulled old versions of my presentation from cloud backups, emailed Julian with updates and new slide drafts, told him what I'd need once I landed. Jessica met me at baggage claim. She didn't ask questions, just hugged me and helped me carry my suitcase to the car. At her place, I set up on the guest room desk with my tablet and headphones. I called Carol after dinner. She turned the screen to show all 3 kids' faces dusted with flour from baking cookies. "Aunt Carol lets us stir the bowl," Tyler said proudly. "We have to clean up after ourselves," Emma added. Grant held up a spatula and shouted something that sounded like marshmallow dance. "They're adjusting just fine," Carol said. "Don't worry about a thing here." That night I slept for the first time in days. Not just because I was tired, but because something heavy had finally lifted. 3 days later, Amanda called. The phone buzzed with her name just as I was logging off a client call. I picked up. "Where are my kids?" she asked. "In a safe place," I said, "with someone responsible." "You left them. You abandoned them." "No, I arranged care for them when their mother and grandparents left without proper planning. I returned to New York to save the job. Your lie nearly cost me." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then her voice rose. "You're just mad because we didn't ask you nicely." "You didn't ask at all, Amanda. You faked a medical emergency." Another pause. Then she hung up. I stared at the screen, waited, then set the phone down. It rang again an hour later. This time it was my dad. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Setting a boundary," I said. The line went quiet. Then he said, "We just needed a little help." "I know what you needed," I told him, "but how you went about it, that's the problem." I didn't expect them to understand it right away. I just knew I wasn't going to repeat the old pattern anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel unsure about it. The next few days came in waves. Amanda called again the following morning. I let it go to voicemail. Her message started calm, but by the end, her voice cracked through clenched teeth. "You've ruined everything. The kids are crying for me. I hope you're happy." That same afternoon, a text from Dad popped up. "We need to talk. What you did was selfish." Then another one from Mom a few hours later. "Rachel, I'm not feeling well. The stress is affecting my blood pressure. I read them all, set the phone down, and stepped away. That evening, I FaceTimed with the kids. Tyler had built a model bridge with Legos and wanted to show how it could hold books without falling. Emma had drawn a picture of Aunt Carol's cat sitting on a pillow throne. Grant made faces at the screen, trying to balance a grape on his nose. "They're eating vegetables," Carol said, half laughing. "All I had to do was call them superhero snacks." She walked me through their week. She'd reached out to Tyler's pediatrician and gotten the prescription refilled. Emma had made a friend at school. Grant napped at the same time every day now. "I found Amanda's insurance card in a drawer full of takeout menus," she said. "Took 5 minutes." The kids were settled. I could breathe. Back in New York, I threw myself into the Horizon launch. Julian had kept everything from falling apart in my absence, but the timeline was tighter now. We met with vendors back-to-back, rebuilt the presentation files from scratch, and pushed to confirm every detail. Nancy kept her tone professional, but I noticed she watched me closely. The third day back after I wrapped a call with our lighting tech, she stepped into my office. "You look steadier," she said, more grounded. I nodded and got back to work. Later that week, I got a call from my cousin Meredith. "I heard about what happened," she said. "Mom told me." Meredith's mom was my Aunt Joan Dad's sister. Word had spread. "Honestly, good for you," she said. "Amanda's been calling in favors since high school and nobody ever said no." 2 days later, Uncle Mark reached out. "About time someone held them accountable," he told me. "Your parents have been enabling Lindsay's behavior for years. Even my grandmother, who usually stayed out of things, sent a card. Sometimes love means holding a line. Proud of you." The messages kept coming. Quiet ones, supportive ones, people who'd seen the same patterns finally speaking up. I didn't answer Amanda's next few calls. Instead, I replied to each text with the same sentence: "The children are safe and well cared for. I'll speak with you when you're ready to have a respectful conversation." Eventually, her messages softened, then stalled. The cruise ended. They flew home. The day after they returned, Amanda called again. This time her voice was different. "The kids seem happy at Carol's," she said. "They are. Emma said they have rules now." Grant picked up his toys without being asked. "I waited. I didn't think about what this would do to your job," she said. "I just assumed you'd be fine." "You didn't ask?" I replied. "No, I didn't." She didn't try to explain, just let it sit there. We said goodbye without resolution, but something about her tone was quieter. 2 days later, my dad sent a text. "You might have been right. That was it. 5 words. By then, the Horizon event was almost ready. Nancy asked me to join her for the final client presentation. When we walked into the boardroom, she introduced me with one sentence: "This is the woman who delivered your launch during a family emergency. Imagine what she can do when everything's running smooth." The client signed the renewal that afternoon. I flew back to Phoenix the next week just for 3 days. This time I set the terms. I booked a hotel. I met Carol for coffee. I didn't offer to babysit. And for the first time in a long while, my parents didn't ask. I flew back to Phoenix 2 weeks after the launch this time, without a suitcase full of children's clothes or a note on the counter. I booked a 3-day trip, checked into a hotel near Camelback, and made it clear I was coming to visit, not to fix anything. When I pulled into Carol's driveway, the kids were already outside. Tyler ran up first, holding a blue ribbon in one hand. "I got second place at the science fair," he said. "My bridge held the most weight in our class." Carol stepped out behind him, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "He worked on it every evening after dinner," she said. His teacher was impressed. Emma walked up slower, clutching a clipboard. "I made a chart to track my dance practice," she said. "Aunt Carol helps me fill it in." She twirled once, then added, "And I don't cry when my costume itches anymore." Even Grant seemed calmer. He didn't tackle me like he used to, just wrapped his arms around my leg and leaned in. "We've been working on how to say hello without knocking people over," Lindsay said from the front steps. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore sneakers and a t-shirt that said Parenting Matters across the front. I started a parenting class at the community center, she said. Carol suggested it. Figured it couldn't hurt. We sat in the backyard that afternoon watching the kids chase each other through the grass. Lindsay sipped from a bottle of water, tapped her foot slowly. I never realized how much I leaned on other people, she said. It was just the way things always worked. I didn't say anything, just let her speak. I mean, I knew I was tired. I thought I was doing my best, but I didn't really think about what I was asking you to carry. She looked down at her hands. I expected you to fill in the gaps. I didn't even stop to ask what it was costing you. It was quiet for a moment. I'm trying to do better, she said. I'm still learning. That evening, we all had dinner at my parents' house. Amanda cooked simple baked chicken and roasted vegetables. The kids helped set the table. I watched my mother step in only once, and even then, it was to pass a plate, not to interfere. After the meal, we sat in the living room, the kids playing quietly on the floor. Dad cleared his throat. We've been thinking about what happened last fall, he said. We never should have lied to you. Mom nodded. We didn't show respect for your time or your life. She looked over at me. We're sorry. No explanations, no defenses, just the words. Amanda added, I haven't asked Carol to babysit once this month. I've been sticking to my calendar. I even write down the school half-days now. Carol, seated at the far end of the couch, gave her a small nod. Small steps, Amanda said with a shrug. Later, as I packed up to return to my hotel, Tyler tugged at my sleeve. Are you still mad at Mom and Grandma and Grandpa? He asked. I knelt beside him. No, I was hurt. But we're working through it. He thought for a second. Mom says you have important work, like she has important work being our mom. That's right. And she said everyone deserves respect, even when they say no. I hugged him tight. She's absolutely right about that. As I drove away, the street lights cast soft shadows across the road. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew something had shifted. We were all learning a new way to be a family. 6 months passed before I made another trip to Phoenix. It was spring this time, warm but breezy with orange blossoms in bloom, and the air just light enough to keep the windows down on the drive from the airport. I had come for a weekend visit, nothing more. My work schedule had opened up after a recent project closed out early, and I figured it was time. When I pulled into the driveway, Tyler was already waiting near the garage, holding a laminated poster board. Look what I made for the Earth Day fair, he said. I did all the research myself, and Mom helped me practice the speech. His eyes lit up as he flipped the board around to show the different recycling categories. He'd labeled each one, even added photos. She made sure I had 30 minutes every night to work on it, he said. Lindsay stepped outside just then, brushing crumbs from her jeans. He was really into it, she said. We even made flashcards. Inside the house, Emma showed me her dance chart taped next to the fridge. Each day had a sticker next to it, perfectly lined up in rows. I practiced even when I didn't feel like it, she said. Mom says follow-through builds discipline. She pronounced the word, slowly proud of herself. Grant wandered in with a juice box and plopped onto the couch. He gave me a quiet wave, then pointed to a magnet board. That's my feelings chart, he said. We use it before bedtime. I glanced toward the kitchen where Lindsay was rinsing out a coffee mug. She caught my eye and gave a small shrug. I didn't know what I didn't know, she said. I just assumed I could wing it. She paused. I'm still learning. That night we had dinner again at Mom and Dad's. This time Amanda brought a homemade pasta bake. The kids helped set the table, folding paper napkins into little triangles. After dinner, we lingered around the living room, everyone too full to move right away. Dad cleared his throat. I've been thinking about last fall, he said, his hands folded in his lap. We haven't really talked about it, not as a family. He looked at me, then at Mom. We were wrong, he said. We shouldn't have lied to you. It showed a lack of respect for your life and your work." Mom nodded. "We took for granted that you'd always say yes. I don't think we even realized how much we were asking until you said no." Amanda shifted on the couch but stayed quiet. "It took that wake-up call to see it." Mom continued. "But we see it now." There was no rush to fill the silence. Finally, Amanda looked over. "I've been trying to handle things on my own," she said. "Carol's helped me with scheduling and budgeting. She even showed me how to set up a chore board." Carol, seated in the armchair across from us, gave a nod. "She's made real progress," she said. "Hasn't asked me to watch the kids on short notice once this month." Amanda gave a little laugh. "Baby steps." When the evening ended, I walked toward the front door with my bag. Tyler followed, holding his Earth Day poster under one arm. "Are you going to come to my school fair?" he asked. "If I can make it, I will," I said. "And if I can't, I want to see pictures." "Deal." He nodded, satisfied. As I reached for the door, he tugged my sleeve gently. "Are you still mad at Mom and Grandma and Grandpa?" I crouched down to his level. "I'm not mad," I said. "I was hurt, but we've been working on things. Together." He nodded thoughtfully. "Mom says saying no is still a kind way if it's honest, and that you can love someone and still not do what they ask." "That's true," I said. "She also said next time she'll use her words and not her tricks." I smiled. "That's a good plan." He leaned in for a hug. "I'm glad you came back. I'm glad too." As I stepped outside into the quiet night air, I could hear the soft buzz of the porch light behind me and the faint sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen. It didn't fix everything, but it was something new. That weekend came and went without drama. No whispered expectations, no last-minute favors. Just a few warm meals, some thoughtful conversation, and quiet moments that felt like something new, something earned. On Sunday afternoon, before heading back to the airport, I stopped by Aunt Carol's one more time. The kids were in the backyard, swinging lazily from the old tire swing she'd hung from the cottonwood tree. Tyler waved when he saw me and shouted something about building a volcano next week. Emma ran over and hugged me tightly, holding a paper flower she'd folded from napkins. Grant handed me a peanut butter cracker and said, "You can have it even though I licked it." Carol laughed from the porch. "He's learning generosity," she said, sipping her iced tea. I stayed a few minutes longer than I meant to, just watching them run barefoot through the grass, shrieking at imaginary bugs and taking turns pushing each other on the swing. Before I left, I turned to Carol. "Thank you for everything." She smiled, easy and steady. "You gave them more than just structure, Rachel. You gave them a different story." The flight home was quiet. I didn't open my laptop. I didn't check my messages. I just looked out the window as the desert gave way to clouds, and I thought about how far things had come since that first chaotic morning when I landed thinking Mom was sick. In some ways, that version of me, the one who rushed to fix, who bent until she nearly broke, didn't make it back from that trip. But something better did, something quieter, stronger, clearer. Over the next few months, the change held. Lindsay stopped calling me only when she needed something. Sometimes she called just to share something funny the kids had said or to ask about my work. Mom started checking in too, not just on my schedule, but on how I was doing. And Dad, who had always been a man of few emotional words, asked for a copy of the Horizon campaign materials, said he wanted to understand what I'd pulled off under pressure. The family still had its habits. Old rhythms don't vanish overnight. But there was space now, real space for me to be a person in that circle, not just the one who showed up, cleaned up, and kept everyone else going. And the kids, well, they grew. Tyler started setting his own alarms and packing his own lunches. Emma practiced her dance moves with purpose, not perfection. Grant stopped using the permanent markers as face paint. Every time I visited after that, it was on my terms. Not as the helper, not as the fallback plan, just as myself. What happened that week? What started with a lie and ended with a line drawn in the sand turned out to be the beginning of something better. Not louder, not dramatic, just better. Sometimes love looks like saying yes, but sometimes it looks like saying, not this time, and trusting that the people who truly care will learn how to meet you halfway. If you've ever found yourself giving too much, staying too quiet, or holding your breath to keep the peace, I hope you know it's okay to take a step back, to speak the truth even if your voice shakes, to believe that your needs matter too. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others and for yourself is to stop holding the weight they were never meant to hand you in the first place. Thank you for being here with me. If this story reminded you of something in your own life, I'd love to hear it in the comments. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, quiet, real, and full of heart, I hope you'll subscribe and join me next time.